Welcome back to Insight Builder channel. Big data learners, my dear friends. Big data cluster demystified. Advanced exploration of Hadoop file system and Spark engine. Introduction video. What is big data? If a file is bigger than your random access memory inside your server, then if you are trying to process that big file, the script that is processing the file will crash. It could be a Python script or it could be any other bash script also, it will crash. In that case, what we can do? Option is you increase your RAM, or another option is you split up the file, spread it across multiple systems and process it. That is, the second option is what we call it as big data or the distributed file system. Hadoop is one of the distributed file system which can keep track of how the files are distributed among various nodes. This particular slide explains that. You see the small data here, it works on single server, no issues. If it is a big data, then it has to be split into multiple files and it has to be spread across the distributed network of nodes. There will be worker nodes, there will be data nodes, and there will be name nodes inside the Hadoop file system. We will be discussing those things step by step. The point I want to make here is that we need to understand the problem that is solved at a very basic level. So files are big, so the files are split and it is spread across the nodes. Hadoop file system takes care of splitting it, spreading it, and keeping track of it. On top of the file system, when we need to do an ETL, that is extraction, transformation and loading on that file that we have already maintained inside the distributed file system, there comes Hive and Spark. All these things is what we are going to discuss in this slide. We have the Hadoop file system that I introduced just a moment ago, and we have the Spark engine that works on the file by querying the Hadoop file system. And then to work with both of these things, we have Python environment like PySpark, Jupyter Notebooks, etc. This is the major player or the key applications of the big data ecosystem. The application actually runs on Linux. You can run it on any of the Red Hat or SUSE or Ubuntu Linux. Running it on Ubuntu Linux is way more easier. The installation process is very simple. And we need a Metastore database. Metastore database is a place where your tables or the data that you feed into the Hive and Spark and start querying it, details of the tables are stored inside this Metastore database. We call it as catalogs or simply Metastore. We need these two things as a base system. So this is the overall ecosystem of the big data. This is what you need to understand. There are so many other applications that come into picture with various kinds of additional bells and whistles. We have Pig, Huey, Scoop, Presto, Trino, Flink, Kafka, you name it. There are hundreds of different products out there. When you say big data, it has to have a distributed file system. So Hadoop is a distributed file system, and in order to query it, there should be a query engine. It all started with Hive and then it came to Spark right now. We have Huey and Presto, as I told. You don't need to worry about it. Instead of using Python, you can actually use Huey also, but let us use Python. That is way more useful, way more user friendly. Just a moment ago, I explained that you can do an ETL on the file system that is distributed, but this distributed file system can have various types of sources. It can come from virtual machines inside your Google, Azure or AWS compute systems. It could come from any of the Python sources also, like Pandas. It can come from streaming pipelines like Kafka or dbeaver database connections. Wherever it is, you can actually take the data, use Spark and push it into HDFS. And also the same way, you can use Spark, take the data out of the HDFS and push it into any of these locations. All these things can be done, but there are also other things to do. You can actually use these integration softwares like Docker, dbt, Airflow to integrate it with applications, the data warehouses like Snowflake, Redshift, etc. Moving data between warehouses or data clusters is a very high risk and high speed environment. You need to understand each and every step how the data is getting moved between each of these systems. So understanding the basic of the ecosystem, the basics of the application is very important before you take on any of the bigger challenges. The question arises, why we have to explore the cluster? As I started discussing about this is more of an introduction video where I am actually sharing you the actual reason to explore the cluster. Okay, when you start exploring the cluster, you will know how the data is placed inside it, how the architecture of the system is, and how the data is placed between multiple applications like Hadoop, like Spark, and the Postgres database or the Metastore database that I was talking about. How the data and the ETL pipelines can be migrated. So if you are having on-premise, if you want to migrate it to EMR or any of your other warehouses like software as a service warehouses like Data Factory or Databricks, then how to do it. Learn how the catalog or the Metastore works. Not only just in EMR, I'll be using EMR, AWS EMR for this discussion. That's why I mentioned it here, but it does not actually pertain only to EMR discussion. This can be used with other software as a service or other big data clusters that is provided by various other service providers. When your pyspark script fails, you can debug it logically. You will understand, okay, which part of the connection did not work, and accordingly you can manage your pyspark script and correct it. And finally, you can also describe and handle the table details inside the Spark engine and Hive engine. All these things you can do once you start exploring it. But you don't own a cluster, right? We usually will not own a cluster. We might own a very good high performance laptop. It can be up to 16 GB, maximum up to 32 GB of server also you might own with a good GPU. But having a cluster is very, very rare. So there are two options. You can build your own cluster. So you can refer to this particular playlist that is available in my YouTube channel. Let us go to the browser and we can take a look at that. So you can take a look at this build your own big data cluster YouTube playlist, or you can actually take a look at take your big data cluster for a spin. Both of this playlist actually discusses about these working with the big data ecosystem. If you want to build it on your own, then you can use this playlist. You will start from the very basic of provisioning the virtual machine up to getting the single node big data cluster with Hadoop and Spark up and running. So this takes care of the entire process. Let us go back to the presentation. Another option is you can follow along with this video where we will be starting up an AWS EMR cluster. It will hardly take 15 minutes. The benefit of using this method is that you will understand each and every configuration process, and you will have to learn also about Linux. You will have to learn about Postgres, how the configuration etc. works. You will actually go through a lot of process here. Here all these things will be abstracted away. All you need to do is select the choices and you will get the cluster in less than 15 minutes. So the reason why I am actually making this video is that not everybody has the time and effort to build their own cluster. So still you have to learn somewhere, you have to start somewhere. But you, instead of spending 20 or 30 hours to understand and get an overview, I felt that to give the overview of the entire ecosystem in less than 1 to 2 hours will be much more beneficial to everybody. So that's the reason why I am curating this video. Next, you have the cluster right now, but what to look for? It always starts with some kind of a .profile file or a bash RC file. We will first look there to find whether we have some information regarding the configuration files. If not, then we will try exploring the Hive context or the PySpark context to find out how the configuration is done inside the cluster. After we locate the configuration files, we have to look for these series of .conf files. or .sh files that will provide you the details about how the configuration has been done inside the cluster. Knowing this is, you are not going to change any of these things. You are only going to read how the configuration is being done. Keep that in mind. We are only going to read it, and also ensure that you are working on your own cluster when you are doing all these things. 99.99%, if you are in a production environment, if you are a developer, you will be never given access to the administration of the cluster, the administrative cluster or the master node. You will be never given access. You will be given access to probably an instance inside the gateway node. You will be never even seeing the actual master node, but you can actually create it by yourself. So it's all it is going to take you is get an AWS free tier account and then follow this video, and ensure that in AWS free tier account you have your budget fixed and your access keys and your password is kept safe. That is very, very important in AWS or any of your cloud environment. It's not that you have to use only AWS. You can use Azure also. You can use Google Cloud also. Everybody have their own big data software as a service support, so you can use that also. There is no issue. What I want to say is, get hold of a cluster so that we can explore it. We are not going to run a job there. Okay, usually you spin up a cluster to run a job, but we are going to spin up a cluster to understand what is there inside the cluster. There is a difference in this video and the next video where we will start exploring. What will be the outcome? See, the outcome is that you will be actually seeing the raw data, how it is actually stored inside the cluster. That is more important than actually moving the data, because if you don't know how is the data looking inside a bucket or S3 bucket or inside the Hadoop file system, how are you going to move it? You might actually move it by imagining something, but most of the time it will fail. That's why when you are running the scripts, you see lots of challenges coming, because when you start automating or when you start programming is not something that comes out of the blue. Okay, it all comes by solving steps of problems, and we are using the computer for that. So you need to know what problem you are solving. So the problem starts with the data, right? You need to know how is the data looking. That is what you will learn here. So to look at the data, to actually go through the process of creating. Go through the process of where the data is getting stored. How is the Hadoop file system coming into picture? So all these things we will actually look into, and we will show the configuration for you. I will not be actually going through the entire commands. I will be going through the basics of showing the databases, basics of showing the tables, etc. If you are really looking into the complete overview of that, I would suggest to look at this particular playlist, where I am actually going through all these things. Take your big data cluster for a spin. It is little bit more involved, it takes additional amount of time. By going through this video, the one that is that you are watching right now, you can get a feel that, okay, should I continue this path or not? You can actually come to that decision because you have the data with you. You know how the workflow actually happens in big data or the big data ecosystem. Then you can decide much easily, right? That is also one of the major point that I wanted to tackle in this video. When you are doing migration and recovery, understanding the basics of cluster is very important. You can start playing with the tables. You can start playing with the databases. In case of big data, these databases, tables, all are actually folders inside the Hadoop file system. They are not any kind of a very different file format that you cannot watch. It's not like that. You can actually take a look at the databases as a folder inside the Hadoop file system, and you can actually look at the tables itself that is stored inside the folders, and you will be surprised to find text files there. Or if you are storing it as Parquet files, or if you are storing the gzip files, yeah, you may not be able to directly open it, but there are ways to do that. So I want to introduce this idea of working with these things more clearly. And yeah, we have discussed about the overview right now. The next step is to get yourself a cluster. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to my AWS account right now and start creating the cluster. So you can also either use your account and follow along with me, or you can also just watch the video and see what happens. That both are okay for me. The major point I wanted to reiterate is that do practice, because when you watch something, it might look easy, but once you execute it, it will actually you will see that there are some challenges that I did not highlight. Okay, there are some challenges that you might actually face, and do share it with me so that I will provide you some feedback. And through the comments in the channel, do leave a like, and also do subscribe to my channel for further discussion on big data and related ecosystem. I'll be working mostly on pyspark, Spark SQL, etc. as the next videos. So reiterating that, start practicing, and you have the necessary environment also. Just create the AWS account, and let us follow along right now. So let me go to the browser right now, and already the EMR console has been I have kept it ready here. So if you are into AWS, you have to go to the search here and type EMR. And once you type EMR, you will see that the EMR comes here. Okay, and that way it will be much more easier. And once you click on EMR, you will be seeing a new environment. You will be seeing a new console. In the new console, if you come to the left down, you will find an option where you can actually go for the old console. So this is actually an older console for creating the cluster. I'll be using that. Use the same thing. So if you are seeing the new console, come out of the new console to the old console when you are learning. Okay, once you learn, then you can actually go to the new console, because the old console is little how to say, little more simple. The new console is very user friendly, but it actually goes through certain processes that I am still not comfortable. So that's why, and also you will also be not comfortable. So that's why I did not actually use that. But this console is much more easier and neater also. If you are here, just click on create cluster. Okay, give a name. So I am going to give a name as Explorer BD, Explorer Big Data. Remove the logging, you don't need the logging. Launch mode is cluster. Okay, and you are going to use EMR 5.3.6.0, where Hadoop, Hive, Mahout, Pig and Taste will be coming. But we actually need Spark also. So ensure that you actually select the version where Spark is available. Okay, that is very, very important, because we are working for Spark. So if you are finding this kind of a challenge, then click on go to advanced options. So this will give you more information. Okay, and it will allow you to select more easily. So I am using still EMR 5.3.6.0. I am not using the 6.0 series. Okay, use 5.3.6, 5.36 only. Hadoop, Hive, Hue, you can actually keep Hue, remove Pig, it's not required. We have Hadoop, Hive, Hue and Spark. Then you can say that you don't need to click this, don't give multiple master node, not required. Use Hive and Spark table as glue catalog. If you are new to AWS, you may not be understanding what is glue data catalog. As of now, just think of it as a database which contains the details of the tables inside the Spark and Hive database. So you might be thinking, okay, already Spark and Hive engines will have their own database. They will be storing it. Why do we have a separate another catalog to store it? So once you actually enter into big data and start working, right, you will understand the complexities around it. This question, if it arises, it arose to me. That is why I had explored a lot, and then I decided that okay, now it is high time that we create a video where we discuss these important points and show it in reality. Okay, so you will get the answer in some time. So that's what I wanted to say as we go along. Okay, so I'm just starting the cluster in this video. In the next video, we will start exploring. So here ensure that you click on this option, don't click this, it will actually start and then stop. It's of no use to us. Okay, then click on next. Once you click on next, ensure that you use uniform instance group. Don't touch this. Leave the VPC and subnet to the AWS itself. They will take care of it. When it comes to instances, we are going to work on exploration. So reduce the instances to 1 and 1. You don't need task instance, and use Spot. For both of the things, use Spot. Let it be M5 large. So let it have 4 cores and 16 GB RAM. It's okay. I mean, we are going to learn it for some time. It will hardly take you for 20 to 45 minutes. Along that spectrum you will actually explore, so it will not take you a lot of cost also. Don't enable custom scaling, so leave it as this, leave it as it is. Don't check this box. Yeah, enable auto termination, no issues. After 1 hour it will terminate. You can allow 10 GB of root EBS, it's fine. Give next. Okay, you can remove this, and here ensure that you give the cluster name. So you have to give the cluster name properly. Okay, so new big data cluster, new BD cluster, and remove the logging. You don't need the logging. Remove the termination protection also, and let the Amazon Linux release come in. I think it will be a SUSE or a Red Hat Linux. So let it be there, because we are not going to install anything. It will come all installed by itself. So don't worry about that. Click on next, and once you click on next, what will happen is you will actually get the option of selecting the EC2 key pair. You need to create your key pair. I hope that you know how to create key pairs in AWS or in your own cloud environment. Do create the .pem key pair, the SSH key pair for SSHing into the master node. Without this, you will not be able to do any of the activity in the next video. So ensure that you select the key pair here. You can leave these things to default. You don't need to touch the security configuration. You don't need to touch EC2 security configuration. At this moment, you don't need to touch. But once the cluster starts, I will let you know. You need to allow some of the inbound access, especially for port 22, right? You need to allow access. I will show it to you in a moment. Let the master and core have separate security group. Let it run, and just click on create cluster. So it will start creating the cluster. It is as simple as that. In another 10 minutes, your cluster will be up and running, and it will say waiting here. Instead of starting, it will say waiting, and you will actually get the DNS, master public DNS here, and you will get the way to connect with the DNS with the master using SSH in this location. So you see that it is provisioning the Spot here, and you see the rest of the configuration here. Going back to the presentation, we have actually understood the background of what we are going to learn, why we are actually doing this, what is the final outcome of our learning, what kinds of files we will be looking for, and how to own a cluster, and then why we are exploring. All these points we are discussing in this video, and right now the cluster is up and running. Will be up and running. In the next video we will start exploring. So I hope that you guys understood the entire architecture, the ecosystem, and also the purpose of this video. Do subscribe for this channel, so that you will do subscribe for my channel, so that you will get updates right to your YouTube dashboard, and you can start learning about big data. Not just big data, you can even start learning about other related Python environment like LangChain for large language models, and also for Python ecosystem like Pandas and DBT, so Linux even. So take a look at my other playlists also. I hope that you will like this video, and do leave a like. Till the next video, stay tuned guys, and as usual, practice. See you.